Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My name is Igad Abimanyu, and today I want to talk about a film called Babel. I was recently assigned to analyze this film, and I wanted to actually make this into a video format instead of a textual analysis, is to recreate the opposing element present in Babel. I didn't want to make this presentation feel bland or this sway feel bland. And this certainly is not your first time hearing me, unless of course you skipped over the previous slide, and this won't be your last time hearing me as well, unless of course that's an unfortunate thing for you. Hopefully it is fortunate. But in this segment of this sway or this presentation, I want to talk about Babel's themes, Babel's opposing elements, and truthfully, I couldn't find, that's a lie, I couldn't pinpoint the exact meaning, the exact theme, the exact opposing element on Babel in my first watch, that is. On my second watch, I tried to take things differently. I tried to look at things more accurately, more profoundly, and that certainly helped, but I still couldn't actually pinpoint that accurately. And so I started to look at the opposing elements themselves, and I started relating it to the film, and I started to see some patterns, some things that started to appear more and more. And without giving away too much spoilers, let us go to our first scene, which is of course the first scene of the movie itself. This movie, it represents a lot about life. It represents hate, love, desperation, isolation, propaganda, culture, xenophobia, prejudice, and much, much more. These are all the words that I had done before in Sway, and I wasn't that satisfied with it. That is also another reason why I'm recording this in video format. So this scene over here, why does it represent Babel? One of the first few shots actually taken in Babel. How does it represent Babel in such a way? Now, to first understand this scene, you first have to, of course, have context. What is this scene about? The scene is, of course, the gun dealer trying to sell his gun to Yusuf's father. And the price offered by the gun dealer was 1,000 dirham. And the price that Yusuf's father counter-offered was around 500 dirham, over 50% cut. And of course, this created tension between them for all around 3 to 5 seconds. And in this 3 to 5 seconds, a lot of things happened. A lot of themes were communicated to us. First, the camera, it has a close-up shot of Yusuf's father. It puts us, the audience, in his shoes. And when it cuts to the gun dealer, it's a medium close-up shot. It creates a distance between me, which I'm right now in the father's shoes, and the gun dealer. Now, of course, we understand this. We always feel, when we go to the supermarket, we don't want to buy any overpriced goods. This is more relatable to us. And then the other thing that this scene does, it represents family as well. It shows shots of each family member present in the room. The tension rising, who knows what's going to happen next. And of course, after that, all tension is cleared. In all these 5 seconds, the father jokingly offered the goat. Not jokingly, but he offers a goat in sort of a casual manner. And of course, this puts a smile on the gun dealer's face. After that, the movie continues. Not only is this the starting point of the movie where it basically breaks or creates the chain of events throughout this movie, but it is also the opposing element of communication and miscommunication. The silence between them, the awkwardness represents the miscommunication, and the casual talking between them represents communication. And this movie has a lot of miscommunication in it. Now, of course, this is not the only scene that represents this theme. Let us move on to the next scene. Now, this is the second scene I want to talk about. It's a scene that I dubbed a soccer game. You'll see why in a while. And it is a scene that at first revolves around Richard, but at a closer glance, it really does not. This scene occurs when Richard is calling his embassy in a village his wife is stationed in, calling for help, calling for emergency services, help that unfortunately does not come to him. There's a lot of problems occurring through the phone. Due to political reasons, the helicopter can't come, and because of the political tension between these two countries, the ambulance is not allowed to come and pick the wife up. Now, all of this is the general gist of the information given to perpetuate the movie or the story of the film. But everything what I've said so far is kind of contradicting. If you relate it to the camera, everything I've said so far is, generally speaking, the highlight of this scene. But at a closer glance, at a second look, this scene never focuses on Richard alone. The camera is never on Richard for more than 3 seconds. The camera always restlessly shifts around the room. It does not focus on Richard alone, but it also focuses on all the peeping eyes in the room, through the window, through the doors, the person in the room. And you got to keep in mind, every person in this village does not know the language Richard is spouting out of his mouth currently. The only person in the village that actually knows him is the translator that came with him on the bus. No one in the village knows him. And because of this, because of the camera's refusal to highlight Richard, it is to highlight the distress and the unease felt by the villagers. Now, this is very, very evocative. You are actually not in Richard's boots anymore. Throughout this film, throughout this point of view, Richard's point of view, you're always close to him. But in this scene, you feel distant. The camera itself manages to make a distance between me and the character. It puts us instead in the shoes of the villagers. We've seen before this, or we've seen after this, Richard's growing violent tendencies. He tackles the man that threatens to leave him there due to his safety concerns. And of course, this really gives us, the audience, discomfort and fear to the character. But not fear as in a fear towards a criminal, but more of a fear to your parents, a fear of getting scolded for the first time. It's that kind of fear. That is why I really like the scene. But the cherry on top, when Richard is about to exit this building, the conversation before that on the embassy states that his wife's news was being portrayed throughout the world on television. And as soon as Richard exits the building in a hurry, we see a television playing football, playing soccer. We don't see his wife portrayed on the news. We see a game of soccer. That is one of the reasons why I think this director really managed to incorporate the mise-en-scène in this scene perfectly. And with that, I want to move on to the third fact that actually brings everything together. Now, the third part that I wanted to talk about is not a scene at all. It is actually the sequence of the movie itself. Throughout this whole film, it has followed a direct set of formula. It first started with Yusuf, then to Amelia, then to Richard, then to Chieko, and then repeat. Yusuf, Amelia, Richard, Chieko. It almost never breaks apart this formula, except for one singular point in the movie. Only once it breaks this formula. And that is right after Chieko gives a letter to the detective. Now, instead of cutting to Yusuf like normal, it instead skips a part. It instead goes to Amelia sitting in the police station. Now, one might think this is done because Yusuf's story was already concluded. But right after Amelia's point of view, he instead switched to Yusuf's. Although it's a small shot, it is undeniable that the camera shows Yusuf. Now, why did they make a decision to break this formula? Why put Yusuf's scene after Amelia's, and throughout the whole movie it has followed this miscommunication? The sequence of the movie itself represents the theme. This is something that is very, very smart. It's something that I really, really like. Now, with that, I would like to conclude this segment. Although there are a lot more scenes that directly communicates miscommunication, some a bit on the nose, some a bit abstract. But to talk about all of it would be too lengthy for this segment alone. I still have many other segments, and as I said before, this won't be your last time hearing me. And with that, let's go to the next segment, which will be talking about color.